Matthias, just wanted to, you have focused on the UNECE R155. You mentioned it before. Please bring us into this topic.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that happened last year is, of course, the 21434 was released. But what also is now getting enforced is the UNECE R155. And I have the feeling, at least in the experience of our customers, so tier 1s, 2s, OEMs, that the effort which gets started with that is really underestimated. For me, 155 is a little game changer. That's why I selected the topic here for the discussion. And it starts even in the definition phase of this legislation. We have now a legislation for cybersecurity, which you need to fulfill for type approval. In 2024, everything needs to comply to that standard. So everything what we started last year in development falls under that. So give you some points. In the definition of the words, 155 defines 3 phases of the product life. It says we have a development phase, we have a production phase, and then most interesting, we have a post-production phase. So you stop production and then you have the post-production phase. And in that phase, you still need to be capable of delivering updates and have a yearly report to legislator. And now it comes. The post-production phase ends with the last vehicle. That means if you're unlucky, in brackets I have to say, and you design really an iconic car, and the car goes into a museum and is standing there and it's still drivable, you have to deliver updates to this car and you need to continue your systems to this car. Something which we don't do at the moment. We still call it aftermarket. So we have a production, we call it aftermarket. But what is changing now is this aftermarket period is the lifetime. That's where we do the updates. That's where we sell features, functions. That's where we make money with it in a way which we are not used to today. And to get a bit more detail, the 155 asks you, for example, that you need to have a cybersecurity management system in the company which goes along the complete supply chain. And you need to certify that. You need to get a certificate as an OEM, which you need for the type approval. And in the type approval, you will have document checks. You need to get a certain package of documents. So you will check if you have estimated the risks along your supply chain, that you have taken measures, that you can detect and respond attacks to your car. Something which is also new, I would say, that you collect data in forensic quality, that you can, how should I say, look on attempts to hack your car, so successful or not, and for sure what tests and results, what tests you have done, and you need to deliver the results to the type approval. So when we now say that you can't say too much yet, this reads a bit like the OBD legislation for emissions. You have to disclose to the legislator how you take care of cybersecurity and what you have done, and also of the measures. And the legislator on the other side is by 155 needs to be committed to have the people in place which are capable to judge that, if that's good enough or not. So I would say it's quite a game changer what we have here. And my question is more or less, are we ready for that?
Eden, what do you think?
It's funny that you asked that, Matthias, because I was participating in a conference last year at Bonn in Germany, and they had that exact question. In the beginning of the conference, they asked all the OEMs and the suppliers there if they think we are ready for it, if they think we are ready to move forward with the open source software and the development and to get improving that. So in the beginning, most of the audience said yes. And after 2 days of conference, which they show all the challenges and problems that we might have, most of the audience changed to no. So it just remind me that they were honest. It was anonymous, so they just were honest and said no. So I'm not the one to decide if they are ready or not. You know, it depends on the OEM suppliers, and it's really one of the challenges is that most of the OEMs, it's a reorganization for them. It's require reorganization, new cybersecurity culture, new processes in really short amount of time. You mentioned the dates for everything. And also, it's funny that you mentioned the SOP phase, because it reminded me not about SOP, but on daily basis, we can see that some OEMs, I'm not going to mention the names, but some OEMs publish some new vulnerabilities that they found inside their vehicles, inside their VCU, and publish it over the internet. And I'm always wondering to myself, okay, so they feel confident enough to share this information because they've done a over-the-air update or something, but probably so many cars are still on the road with those vulnerabilities, and those OEMs are the one to share it. So it's a combination of two things, like to show that, to be confident that you can do for yourself cybersecurity as an OEM and share those kind of things, but it gives an attacker, even if not the vulnerability itself, but so much data and information about those ECU, about those vehicles. And it's also in terms of safety. I don't know what will happen to the end user which still use those vehicles. How do you monitor this kind of stuff? How do you still responsible to that kind of users and vehicles? So I don't have like a straight answer, yes or no, but it's really a long process and really, really challenging that term.
Yeah, that's what we see at the end also, what I see. Some of the OEMs are in really good shape, as you said, and have systems in place, change the business model and things like that, adapt to this cases. And on the other side, we also see customers which say, oh, we do FUSA, but cybersecurity we will do when we get a project. And I think, honestly, seeing the list now of requirements what UNECE puts out, I think when a tier 1 or tier 2 starts with a project which goes 3 years later into production, that's too late. Yeah, you need to build up this capacity, this processes, this adaptation, these capabilities. Even if you don't have a project, you need to be prepared when you get the project, so you can be successful in that. And that's a bit, I think, a big underestimation what we do at the moment. And also the FUSA thing, you know, FUSA is more or less asking the question, what can go wrong and how can we harm people? And the cybersecurity, when it comes down in the drivetrain, is asking how can we misuse stuff? How can we alter stuff? And also, I think there we are still a bit too optimistic.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I think, as you say, it's like with functional safety. I think the approach has been to be quite conservative on the core functionality of the vehicles, and I think that would be the way to go. That people will go with cybersecurity as well. But nevertheless, no matter how conservative you are and how protective you are of your most vulnerable and valuable assets, there will always be things that you didn't even know existed. You didn't know that you didn't know them. Even on quite old technology, there might be security holes. We saw some example of that for Log4j, for example, recently, that has been around for a long time. And then the question is, yeah, of course, there will be a lot of conservative mentality about what we protect, but that doesn't mean that you won't have security holes anyway on the very frequently used technology. And then how do you, and I think this kind of comes back to the topic that both of you have raised. How do you make fixes quickly? And then also, like Eden said, there is this kind of almost border line ethical question of what do you expose after you have fixed your stuff. If you want to show off very much and be very competitive to kind of maybe harm the competition, maybe maybe some kind of ethical rules will be evolved about that as well, because for instance we have on our phones or computers that are also software heavy, then you can pretty much do the updates very quickly and fix them. So we need to come to that level of maturity, and in vehicles as well. And then the question is how long time it takes to get there and what will happen in this time. I mean, there will probably be a lot of firefighting in this area for a long time until we learn.
Interesting.